In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. These famous words are the very first verses in the very first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. I don't know about you, but whenever I read them, I get chills. Even if, like me, you are not religious, there's something about these ancient lines that stir something primal and fundamentally human within all of us. The question is, how? What can we as writers, world builders, and creators learn from this most enigmatic of texts? Footnote. Genesis is a polarizing text. Some Christians believe it is the literal history of the world, while hardcore atheists discredit it by pointing to its Near Eastern precedents, for example. But both parties miss what, to me, is one of the coolest things about the book. Genesis has never meant one thing. For example, the book has two different creation myths, three if you count the flood, the one we're reading, and the second one, which begins here. So not only have the interpretations of Genesis changed over time, even the text is continually reinterpreting itself. Before I studied Genesis, like many people, I held the misconception that the biblical God created everything out of nothing. But if you read the actual text, it turns out some things did exist before God began. An inchoate earth that was a formless void, something called the deep, darkness, a wind from God, which we'll return to later, and some mysterious waters. If you were to write a creation myth like Genesis, you would first face the question, what comes before creation? In the Greek version of creation, theogony, Hesiod answers this question by writing, "At first chaos came to be," chaos being the void or abyss that exists outside ordered reality. Genesis is doing something different. We begin in a kind of chaos, but a chaos that has substantive, poetic shape. I think of it as a pseudo-nothingness, a state that's as close to barren as possible, while leaving God just enough raw material to create. This state of something-nothing leads to all sorts of mind-bending imagery. For example, the earth is described as a formless void. Let's walk through that phrase. Voids, by definition, contain nothing. But voids are containers, and containers are something. So if we make the void formless, we're left with a nothing that is a something but without a shape and is therefore nothing? Something? You'll find this kind of recursive paradox in all sorts of creation myths. Consider our modern creation story, the Big Bang. A physicist will tell you that the Big Bang is when time began. But what came before time? What does before even mean without the context of time? We have our paradox. Our holy book will one day describe a pre-Big Bang universe as being in a state of durationless time. When images become impossible to reconcile with our rational minds, they drop to our bellies and tickle our guts. This is the primal pull of the book of Genesis. Consider this phrase, the deep. When I asked ChatGPT to write Genesis in its own words, it named this place an abyss, but it seems to be, well, deeper than that. As I've spoken about elsewhere, adding the before an elemental noun endows it with a profound and somewhat mysterious importance. The deep. Speaking of the deep, notice how our anonymous authors give the deep a human attribute, the face of the deep. And they do it again, here, the face of the waters. Yes, adding face is a common anthropomorphism for many familiar nouns, the face of the earth, the moon, the building. But the contrast of plopping this most superficial of physical attributes on an entity of bottomless intrigue gives it character, personality, and life, before life as we know it exists. Next, we learn that a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Footnote. The translator's decision here to call it a wind from God is not a reference to the Father's flatulence, but a choice that again illustrates my enduring fascination with Genesis. how its meaning has changed over time. The King James Bible calls this wind the Spirit of God, a later Christian interpretation which connects it with the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Our translators chose to preserve its ancient context, which interprets the wind as a divine breath in preparation for God's creation, which, in this cosmology, is an act of speech. More on that later. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Of all the ways a God could create, this is the closest to my heart. In the story world of Genesis, the act of speech is the act of creation itself. But there are layers to this notion. In the original Hebrew, this speech as act concept was expressed with the word Dabar, in which God's very words are an action or deed. When the Bible was later translated into Greek, Christian theologians associated God's speech with the word logos, which connotes reason and rationality, the origin of the word logic, expanding it to encompass the underlying structure of reality. Does that not capture your imagination? We have speech as a sound that communicates, speech as an act that creates, and speech as the surface expression of an invisible, organizing principle that guides all things. When you want to write as powerfully as God creates, remember, the words you choose aren't just sounds. They communicate, create, and establish values all at once. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.